we are talking about why we have moved so much. All right, so we're going to run through the list. Now, this is not going to be an exhaustive video of everything that happened in every place we went. We're just kind of running through why we moved to each place that we did. Please subscribe and hit the bell notification so you can be notified when we put up new videos. Hello, I am Tara, the author of the Dining on a Dime cookbook, where you can eat better, spend less. We have a new hardcover with full color pictures and over 1,200 recipes and tips to help you save money on your grocery bill. Check it out at livingonadime.com. Now, just to give you a rundown, when we got married, we were living in Estes Park, Colorado. Then we moved to Austin, Texas. Then we moved to Craigmont, Idaho. Then we moved to Nez Perce, Idaho on the Indian Reservation. Then we moved to Manhattan, Kansas. Then we moved to Alta Vista, Kansas. Then we moved to Wichita, Kansas to one house, Wichita, Kansas for another house, Andover, Kansas for the next house. And our 10th move was here to Colorado.
That sounds pretty awesome when you say it that way. Like, oh my goodness, what's wrong with us?
So in 15 years, we moved 9 times, and we are not in the military. So here's kind of what happened. It's kind of funny because each move actually had a purpose. And we've been criticized before for moving so much. But you know what? So what if you want to move? People think that it's this horrible, awful thing that we moved so much, but we paid for it ourselves. Yeah, we had family members help us, but we've helped them do other things too. So,
and thankfully, we've moved less as we've gotten older.
So here's what happened. In Estes Park, we got married and we were living in a little apartment downtown. Mike was a waiter and looking for a video production job. Couldn't find one. We were having issues with his parents at the time. So we were kind of like, you know what? This isn't working out. The tourist season is over. We got married in October. He couldn't get a job. So he wanted to move back down to Austin, Texas, where he's from, to try and find work.
And that's where I also went to university, and I had previously worked with people there when I was in school there.
So he thought he might be able to get a video production job there. So we lived in a suburb of Austin called Round Rock, and in an apartment next to the train.
We didn't know about the train until we were in.
We were there 6 months, and he just looked and looked and looked and just could not find a job. Just looked and looked everywhere. So he was a waiter again, trying to keep us afloat. I was horridly sick while we were in Austin. Heat and humidity makes my chronic fatigue syndrome worse by like a billion times. And we got a $5 recliner, and I pretty much spent the entire 6 months in the recliner. And that we had only been married about 6 months at that point, and Mike was like, man, what did I get myself into?
Well, and after the restaurant thing didn't work out, so I took a job where the grocery store where I used to work, and it was a lot more stable, but it was never going to pay enough.
Yeah.
And particularly with Tara being sick, though, we thought we'd just have to go somewhere else.
Yeah. So we decided, okay, where can we go? We really wanted to be in the mountains where it was cooler. We liked the mountains, but we didn't want to go back to Estes Park for family reasons, or Colorado in general for family reasons. So I have a cousin in Craigmont, Idaho, teensy tiny town, like 500, 600 people, not very many people. And I called him one day, and I hadn't seen him for like 20 years. And I said, what do you think of Idaho? And he said, we love it here. So Mike and I were like, well, shoot, let's just give it a try. Well, it happened. My cousin knew someone who had a house for rent also. So we packed up, came out to Idaho. That's a story in itself that we're going to tell one day. Almost died going to Idaho. And we moved to Craigmont, Idaho, and the week we got there, they had massive flooding and mudslides, and we got trapped in town for a few weeks. So finally, he got a job at another grocery store 70 miles away and was driving back and forth while he was trying to find something. he couldn't find anything. And just to put in perspective, when we went there, he had a job prospect.
They just changed the rules after we got there. They asked me to rip off little old ladies. They're like, yeah no, not going to do that.
Yeah, he had a job at a bank as a loan officer lined up. But
they asked me,
yeah,
they said, this job really, we need you to take advantage of little old ladies because other people can't really afford to take out loans.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, no, I'm not going to do that.
So then he got a job at the county in Nez Perce, Idaho.
15 miles away.
Yep, as a county assessor. We got this little house, and the town called it the Barney house. This is actually the picture from the realtor that we got. That's hilarious. So we had this little house, and the whole town hated that it was purple, but I loved that it was purple. So we bought the Barney house for $27,000. He was working as a county assessor for, how much were you making? Like $6 an hour? I think it was like $6 an hour.
6 or 8, I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was like $6 an hour.
And our mortgage was $200 and something a month, $227.
$287. Yeah. So, it was really low. We had planned on staying in Nez Perce. Why, I don't know, but it was a cute little town. It was on the Nez Perce Indian Reservation. But, it was just a normal town. So Mike got a job then. When we started having kids and $6 an hour, I wasn't going to cut it.
Well, I realized pretty quickly into that job, this is not going to be a job that we're going to be able to keep if we want to expand our lives.
Yep.
And Tara happened to discover a television job that I wasn't even looking for at that moment.
Yeah, I just happened to be looking through the newspaper job ads, and he got a job at Washington State University in Pullman, Washington, 100 miles away for $15 an hour. So he was commuting back and forth for a year and a half. That's a whole nother story in itself also. And we tried moving up to Washington. We could not get our house sold in Idaho because it was such a rural town. Nobody lived there. Everybody was leaving instead of coming.
And we were afraid to buy one there because the university was the only decent employer.
Yeah.
And if I lost the job there, we wouldn't be able to pay the mortgage on a new house there.
And they did lay him off 3 times that he was living there. So after Washington, he got laid off. And my brother was paralyzed, had just torn all the walls and everything down in his house to remodel it, got paralyzed from a bad root canal. And we decided to move back to Kansas to help them. We had 2 kids by then. But I didn't want to live in Wichita. Don't like Wichita. Sorry, all our fellow Wichitaians, Kansans, whatever. But I cannot stand the city of Wichita. So we decided to move to Manhattan. He got another job there at the county assessor again. And that was about 2 hours away from my brother. And we lived in this we went sight unseen.
But that was the mistake. Tara rented the house over the phone.
Yeah.
And the story the guy told sounded good. And there was, at the time, it wasn't like today where you could just put a picture on Facebook Marketplace or on the internet somewhere.
Yeah. They didn't have the internet like it is now. I mean, the internet had just started, but it wasn't like it is now. So we rented this house sight unseen, and it was a dump. As a matter of fact, we drove up at 1:00 in the morning, and I was just bawling because there was like a 6-foot pile of trash in the front yard. The white toilet and sink and bathtub were black. It was absolutely disgusting. And I mean disgusting. But back then, we didn't have the money to fight this guy in court, so we just stuck it out the 6 months there. And then we moved to a little town called Alta Vista, Kansas.
To get away from that dumpy house.
To get away from that dumpy house.
I mean, it was really bad.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, that house ended up being in a little tiny, tiny town also. And our bedroom was on the sidewalk of the town. And when the city would plow.
On the main street.
Yeah. When the city would plow, they would pile the snow in front of our bedroom window, and the teenagers would take their trucks and go jumping on the snow bank.
That was pushed against our house. They
Literally.
were jumping their vehicles on the ramp of snow.
So we were laying in bed terrified that a pickup was going to come through our bedroom wall anytime now. I mean, people say, oh, I want a quiet small town. I got news for you. Small towns are not quiet. We have lived in 5 small towns, and all of them have been noisy. It's crazy. When in the Manhattan house, we lived next to Fort Riley, and we heard artillery practice.
It sounded like people jumping on the roof, like lots of people jumping on the roof.
Yeah.
The shock from that. So the Manhattan, after we were in Alta Vista, besides the jumping the ramp thing, I realized, this job also isn't going to really be a long-term thing because it's just not going to pay enough. And I started looking for television jobs in Wichita because I thought we would make a lot more money doing that, which turned out to be true. Yep. Even though it wasn't nearly enough.
So he got a job in Wichita at the PBS station. And so then we moved to the 35th Street house in Wichita. And I love that house. But once again, we ended up next to the concrete plant and we didn't know it.
Well, we weren't near it. They moved their stuff into a residential area right across the creek from us. And so it was not previously a concrete plant. They just moved their stuff there.
So we ended up listening to concrete being broken up all day.
Like jackhammering it all day.
Jackhammering all day long. So, and then we had our 3rd baby by that point, and the house was getting too small anyway. It was just a 2-bedroom. It was getting too small anyway. So then we moved literally not even a half a mile. I mean, it was literally across the street behind. So if you had the street and then you went behind, it was across the street.
Far enough away not to hear the concrete.
Yeah. And we got another house. Well, that house was a bi-level and had stairs. And it had wood floors. It had stairs. I knew it was a mistake. The second we bought it, I was like, this was a huge mistake. So we bought that house.
Well, she was feeling a little desperate because she was pregnant and wanted to move now. And the agent was very aggressive and he was really pushy and... so we ended up sort of in there.
Yeah, getting the house that we didn't want.
Wasn't a good idea.
Yeah. So with 3 kids under 5, it was just reverberating noise with these wood floors, and the floor was bouncy, and I just absolutely was losing my mind with the noise. Yes, I know there's a theme here. I have noise issues. Can't help it.
But also the economy had been bad when we bought that house, and it improved greatly. And then we discovered that like a half a mile away was a 14 train track switching yard. And they started running a lot of trains that had not been running on there when the economy wasn't good. And then our neighbor got a dog that barked a lot and just would not ever stop barking.
Ever stop. Continually barking.
And the house
all day, all night.
Had the echoey walls and floors, which we didn't realize is really suicide if you're a parent with little children and noise isn't your thing.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 kids sound like 20 kids in an echo chamber like that.
So we started looking again. Mike got a map out of the Wichita area, highlighted all of the train tracks, highlighted all of the airports and the directions that the planes went. And we literally found one little section like this out east of town in a little town called Andover, a suburb called Andover.
I told the agent, only look in these places.
We were like, this is the only place we're looking. Well, thankfully, God provided, and we got a really cool house on a really nice lot there. And we really liked that house. It was basically our dream house, kind of.
Dream house, yeah.
And so we lived there for, that was 2007, and we left in 2011, so 3.5 years. And then our brother-in-law got terminal cancer, and we decided that we should come back here so that we can help our niece, because we knew that side of the family wasn't probably going to be capable of helping with that. So we decided, let's go ahead. The economy had crashed then. Houses were cheaper in Colorado.
But the same price in Kansas. So that turned out to be a positive thing.
Well, not really, because we spent $150,000 on that house, putting in a new septic system and a new new fences and insulation, and we did all these improvements on that house because we thought we were going to stay there. And we ended up having to sell it for 135, which means we got like 130 for it after the realtor. So we lost $20,000 on that house.
But by buying this house when we did, we made $200,000 on this house.
Yeah,
when the market
but we
went up.
didn't know that at the time. You know, we were just taking a risk because we didn't know that it was going to go up, because that was when things were still pretty bad with the economy, supposedly, and all of that. So we took the risk and we decided to come back from Colorado. Like Mike said, now we've made a $200,000 profit on this house if we go to sell it right now. And we can go to the next house and have a huge chunk of change for a down payment because our house is totally debt free. So now we are looking to move because of living in the neighborhood with all the barking dogs. We're tired of neighbors. We're tired. When COVID hit, all the neighbors pulled out their basketball goals in the middle of the cul-de-sac and we're bouncing basketballs for hours on end. So yeah, noise is an issue for me. That's why we're trying to find something with acreage and trees. And we're going to make sure it's not by a train track. We're not going to make sure it's by a cement plant. We're going to make sure it's not by a crop duster.
And those things are learning experiences. If
Yeah.
you make a mistake like that, don't feel like you can't change that.
Well, and that's kind of a point I was going to bring up. Everybody criticizes us for moving so much. And I even had one family member say, well, if you guys leave Colorado, don't plan on ever coming back. Like, why not? We came back once before. We can do it again. People, I don't know why people are like that. It's okay to move. It's not like we're asking these people to pay for a move, or even these people that have made the comments haven't said anything about helping us move. And so it's a little frustrating when people do that. It's okay if you don't like where you are to just pick up and move.
And now with this house, we figure we've worked really hard doing a lot of things to really significantly improve our family situation, to improve our financial situation and all that. And we would like to not be saying, how can we make the minimal house things work anymore?
Yeah.
Like this house, it's an okay house. But the thing is, it's a starter home in Colorado. We sold a nicer house that we had eventually worked our way into in Kansas to move into a starter home in Colorado that's very tight in the neighborhood with a lot of people. And, you know, people here love dogs and we love our dog, but we're just he doesn't bark. But the thing is that we're really just not into that anymore. So we're thinking we've working really hard and saving, and now we would like to move into a place that's kind of the house that people would normally
consider a really nice house. Yeah.
After they've done all this work for this long.
Yeah. And
a place that's relaxing and pleasant to go to and feels comfortable and safe and pleasant.
Yeah. And I'm going to start a series on, we did the Penny Pinch Mama series with my mom and kind of my story growing up. And we're going to start a series with us and the things that we've gone through, because some of them are pretty interesting. Also, needless to say.
You don't realize till we tell somebody and they're like,
yeah.
I could never have done that.
Yeah, and a majority of it we actually haven't even talked about on the show. So it's kind of, you guys might find it interesting. So anyway, that's why we've moved so much. I mean, it's the real basic timeline, storyline. But, over 10 years, over 15 years, we moved 10 times. Now we have stayed at this house 9 years. But we're ready to move to Wyoming and get our final house, we hope. But we are looking and we're keeping in mind that if we have to move for some reason, we can't,
Well, like that one house that we talked about where the concrete plant moved in, that wasn't there at all. And truly, that house eventually would have been too small for us with our family growing. But we would not have moved from that house except for the concrete thing at that time.
Yeah. Yep.
So those are unexpected things you can't control, and you need to know that.
Yeah, and even now, we have 4 kids. We never know if one of our kids is going to move to Washington or New Hampshire or whatever, and something's going to happen to them or their spouse, and we have to up and move out there to help them with something, help them with grandkids or help them if they're disabled or something like that. So we always keep it in the back of our mind when we're buying what the exit plan is going to be now after we've made so many mistakes on houses, because we lost money on the Nez Perce house on our first house also. We had to write a check for $8,000 for somebody to take that house. Yeah, it was disgusting. So we been through a lot with moving, but it's also taught us a lot also, so that now we're being super, super careful and super picky.
And there was a gradual, significant improvement in the houses that we ended up in later.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and that's been worth it. And the reason why we're where we are, and the reason why we are able to go to some place that would be nicer, is just because we have made those steps.
Yep. All right, guys, please visit us at livingonadime.com. And moving is one of the ways we are living on a dime to grow rich, by moving ourselves up in houses that are better as we go, and living in crappy houses when we needed to. Really bad houses. Anyway, we will see you guys next time.